So I I don't want to get too personal, right?
Sure.
I don't. But let's talk about being circumcised or not.
Megadads Live is a mature rated podcast. It's for the Megadads, the Mega Moms, but not the Mega Kids. So put on those earmuffs and let's go!
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Mega Dads Live, the podcast where real life meets gamer life. That's right. We're a couple middle-aged old fools building a community, playing games, having a good time. Join us as we release content at megadads.org, as well as our YouTube channel, Megadads on YouTube. You can get this podcast in video form on YouTube or audio form, wherever you get your podcasts. If you've listened for once or 1,000 times, thank you so much. We're super grateful for everyone, every single minute that you spend with us, and it's going to be a good one. We are joined once again by our B squad. So I have Antonio and Evan. Now,
Howdy.
Evan, do you know what Adam said to me as soon as he saw the last episode of Megadads that we took over?
He told you to make sure that I turn off the lights in my office so that my head isn't quite so blinding. This is why I'm wearing a jaunty hat today.
He was super surprised that we didn't screw up the entire show. So he's like, "Oh, you didn't screw it up." So we are filling in for Adam Leonard and running the show today. Adam will be back. He is just on a little hiatus working on some other important projects. I'm not sure if he wants me to talk about it. I'm sure he does. We are relaunching a podcast called Spotlight, where Adam is interacting with friends that we have in the industry who are doing amazing things and talks to them about them, their lives, what they have going on. And it's very exciting. He's pouring his heart and soul into it. So look out for new episodes of Spotlight coming to the Mega Dads Network soon. So tune in, everybody. We want to start off with a little checkup, a little check-in. You know, we just want to make sure that we're both okay, of sound body and mind. Evan, how are you doing?
I don't know if I've ever been sound body. And the mind is a daily thing right now. But overall, I'm all right. You know, it's kind of a crazy time for me personally right now. But you know, overall, overall things are good. And plus, I'm doing a show with the Hypecaster. I mean, how bad could it be?
I hear through the grapevine that you are with child. Is that right?
Yes. No, I have my second child is due in about a month and a half. That can't be right. That can't be right. That can't be right. Now I just terrified myself. So awesome. Thank you for that. Very excited. We are drastically behind the schedule in terms of getting the house ready. It's our second, so we feel like we're a little more prepared this time. Our first kid is a girl, and this will be a boy. And before we'd kind of decided to have a second kid, I had kind of written off ever having to make a decision about things like circumcision. You know, like I'm not gonna have to worry about that. It's fine. And now it's like, oh, now I actually have to have an opinion one way or the other. And it's like, okay, shit. All right, fine. I guess I'll think about it now. But you know, little things like that are weird, but it's overall it's good.
So I don't want to get too personal, right?
Sure.
I don't. But let's talk about being circumcised or not.
It's like Adam's in the room with us. I can just tell.
So I'm not going to ask you that, but
okay.
When you get a hot dog, okay? Do you eat
I'm
it?
Scared now.
Do you eat it with a bun, or do you remove the bun and just have the meat?
You know, I'm kind of all over the place. You know, it's Sometimes it's, if it's especially rough day, I will, and you know what, my inner Beavis is just kind of screaming in the back of my head right now. But like sometimes I won't even go the bun, but I'll wrap it in a slice of cheese. So, connect those dots in any way you want to.
I don't know if we're on the same page with what I'm asking. So let me just put it this way.
I'm aware. I know what page you're on. I'm trying to find another book.
I have a bun, and
Great.
I didn't know people didn't have a bun, because
I think there is.
When you're a kid, you got 10 fingers and 10 toes, you're like, oh, there's hot dogs and buns, and that's what happens. But then one day, when your
metaphor is getting wildly out of control.
When the time is right, you see another hot dog and you realize there's different wraps and condiments and there's some footlongs, there's some wiener dogs. You know what I mean? So I just have a daughter, and I don't know. It's like, I guess I would listen to the medical community and just be like, wait, what's more healthy? A hot dog
generally
with a
that's
bun.
Generally kind of my
no
that's
bun?
kind of my opinion. My thing is it's maintenance stuff, and like I barely keep I barely keep track of. And I'll admit I do have a bit of that Midwestern prude in me. That cringes a little bit with that too. So I wasn't planning on talking about this right now. I'm a little underprepared.
I just want to be clear that you brought it up.
I did. I'm adding that to my many Megadads related regrets.
Megadad's being super positive.
On this part of the show, we like to spread a little bit of positivity.
Don't say spread after this conversation.
In a little segment we like to call Megadads being super positive.
This is another one of those things where it's like there's not a lot of big good news in the world. It's a lot of small stories and little triumphs and things like that. And I'm not a dog person. I'm not an animal person in general. I'm dog friendly adjacent, I guess. Like I'm very much the pet uncle. I don't want to own them. I don't want to take care of them, but I'll visit and all that. But I enjoy this story. So a couple weeks ago, there was a big earthquake in Taiwan, and there was a lot about that story that not only was tragic, but also just kind of absurd, and especially if you follow kind of geopolitics and all that. But my favorite kind of story was this dog named Roger. It was a police dog in training that failed out. It wasn't good at being a police dog. He was too easily distracted by food and people to be a cop. Like any time an innocent animal like isn't good enough for police work, like there's that weird kind of punk part of me that's like, you're too good of a soul to be a cop. But they found out that he was an amazing rescue dog. So he has become this kind of weird national hero in Taiwan. So that is my super positive story. Like I said, it's all about finding those kind of little victories and little kind of bits the little silver linings, I guess would be one way to put it.
That's not a bad resume item to have, that you like saving lives and a rubble specialist. That's pretty cool.
I wonder who's in charge of keeping dog resumes. Kennel clubs and stuff, they've got the birth records, but there's no LinkedIn for dogs.
Let's talk about some games. Open Roads is an adventure mystery thriller game developed by the Open Roads team and published by Annapurna Interactive. It's available everywhere: Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, PC, and Xbox platform, and including Xbox Game Pass, which is where I played it. Okay, Evan, so this is going to be a walk. Are you ready to walk with me?
I'm walking. I'm ready.
If I had disposable income, I would have purchased Dragon's Dogma 2. which is a hotly anticipated title for me personally, and it's gotten rave reviews, and I was looking very forward to playing it, but I didn't have the funds. I was like, you know what? For Megadads and for my next game, I'm going to jump into something that's on Game Pass, and I'm going to specifically try to play something that's a little more niche so I can find a diamond in the rough, tell everybody who's listening to Megadads about it, and be the hero and be like, wow, you uncovered this gem. Instead, I played this game. So Open Roads is not a good game. I picked it up knowing that it was going to be like an artsy game. And I play these games all the time with the express goal that I want to expand my horizons and play the artsy game. Now, Annapurna Interactive they're known for just publishing the out there games. In the publishing realm, they have dipped their toe in What Remains of Edith Finch, Flower, Gongora, Florence, Donut County, Gone Home, Ashen, Outer Wilds, Journey, Telling Lies, Sayonara Wild Hearts, Wadham, Kentucky Route Zero, If Found, The Unfinished Swan, I Am Dead, The Pathless, Marquette, Last Stop, 12 Minutes, The Artful Escape, Solar Ash, A Memoir Blue, Neon White, Stray, kitty cat game, Hokokum, Hindsight Storyteller, Mandoin, Cocoon, which I played and talked about on Megadads, and Thirsty Suitors. So this is Annapurna Interactive Publishing. They know how to back a game that's unique and niche and artsy. And this is for a certain gamer. I am more of a mainstream, play a COD, a competitive shooter, or a battle royale, or, the AAA game, the thing that's winning game of the year. That's where I gravitate to naturally. But I try to play these games. Where do you stand on the artsy game?
I've played a lot of these kinds of games, and honestly, like the big glaring omission for me is Kentucky Route Zero, because that is a game that a lot of the people that I consider very similar in taste they've just talked it up immensely, and I own it, and I just haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. I played things like, the Gone Homes and I love the artsy fartsy games, and part of that is just my background as a film student, and I'm the same way with films, where it's like I enjoy kind of seeing what other people are doing with the medium. You learn pretty quickly when you start digging into the less mainstream media is when to decide when something just isn't for you. And what I mean by that is, like, it's not aimed at you. And it sounds like it's for a very specific audience. And because it's about this, mother-daughter team and going on this trip, and there's a lot of, family tensions and things like that. And so it's like for people that are interested in that kind of story, this could be very good, but it just might not be a story you're interested in.
Yeah. Please allow me to tell you a little bit about the game. So the premise is that you play a teenage girl who wakes up in her room, and you proceed to just be left to your own devices, and you're allowed via the gameplay to walk around and inspect items that are strewn around the room. So you can go over to, your desk, open up drawers, take items out, pick them up, and also rotate them to see the back and zoom in a little bit. That is, I would say, 75% of the gameplay is walking around the environments, which are very simple. The first one is just a home, and picking up things. And that is majority of the gameplay. But the bread and butter of that half of the game is the fun of being in a timepiece. So you're back in the year 2003, I believe, but a lot of the items in the home are like from the 90s basically. So you see like an old school like Mac computer. I believe you have, old books and movies, VHS tapes, like things like that a kid would have, that a teen would have in that time. The other 25% of the gameplay, even less I would say, are interactive dialogue scenes where you say, hold the phone, I found something interesting. It kind of cuts to a animation style, and you have, let's say, this girl and her mother just talking back and forth, and it's a very interesting, almost like a hand-drawn animation, kind of feels very nostalgic, just like all the things that you're seeing and picking up, and it's very cool. This is 75% walking simulator, 25% visual novel, and that is the gist of the game, which isn't necessarily bad, right? How do you feel about these type of games and gameplay? Have you ever played a visual novel? Do you like walking simulators?
I've definitely played visual novels before. I love me a story game. And so, like, I'm not necessarily against it. And I've played those before, and I've talked before, I think on one of these shows, but about my experience with Gone Home, where I went into that fairly late, but also fairly blind. I built a story in my head about what was going on that veered so far from where they went that it wasn't that I was disappointed when I got to the end and I realized that my initial kind of suppositions weren't going to happen, but it was more fascinating to like kind of think about what I was like, why I was thinking that way. That is very fascinating to me, and those walking simulator games are great for that. Yeah, I'm down for this. This could be cool, but again, if the story's not interesting or the characters aren't cool, then it's going to be harder for me to overcome the lack of the gameplay stuff.
Now, when it gets to the story and the plot, if you find the right object, then the story advances, right? Then you go to the next area or the next dialogue moment happens. What you're doing as this teenager is you're in your room, you head out, and you realize that you're in the house where you had previously lived with your grandmother and your mom, but your grandmother is dead. This is so damn depressing. Like it's like, here's a picture of Mima or whatever, and this is where she used to sleep, and like, oh, I miss her, like that type of shit. And I just could not jive with this. I don't like my grandparents' death, thinking about that stuff. And so it's an uncomfortable topic for me. It made me feel emotions. So I guess that's a win, right? In the art department, makes you feel something. But I wasn't enjoying my time in scouring the basement and kitchen and boxes in this near empty old woman's house. Given that that's the setup, is the game is incredibly short. It tops out at no more than 3 hours, and the environments or the sections of story that you go through are only a few. In the gameplay clips that I'll share on the show, I'm literally going to try to focus on the first like fourth of the game, or third of the game max. Everything's a spoiler, so I will say this. The good part, I would say, or the most intriguing part, is that as you learn about your grandmother, you learn about her life, you learn secrets and things about your family. And to not spoil it too much, one thing leads to another, which leads to an open road situation where you hop in the car and you move out to the next area because you're going to do some detective work with your mom. And I'll leave it there, because literally anything else that you say is just going to kind of give stuff away. It was just not my cup of tea. have I sold you on this game, Evan? Or you know what I mean?
I've already wish listed it. No,
I'm so
it's
conflicted. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on it.
the nice thing about kind of the world we live in, as far as things, video games and all that, is there's just so much out there. Like, this is going to be for someone. This is gonna be that game for someone out there that makes them reevaluate their relationships or their history or whatever. I think we, as fans of the industry as a whole, have to be open to that. We as advocates, we have to be able to say, this isn't for me. Another way to put that is, this industry is bigger than my tastes. This industry can cater to a lot of different things, and that's a good thing. That it doesn't have to be, I think it's an Arthur C. Clarke thing where he talks about like a person. It's this weirdly gendered thing where it's like a man should be able to, field strip a rifle and cook a meal and write a book. And, it was basically, the basic idea of it is that no one should be specialized. And specializations for ants, I think, is the last sentence of the bit. And I think an industry like that is the same thing. I think an industry and a medium that can cater to a lot of different people is going to be more successful in the long run than something that it's only going to be the Call of Duties. It's only going to be, the Maddens. It's only going to be those major things. And I think it's good in a weird way. It's like, I almost think it's good that you don't like this, because it says that, if no one liked it, then, that is what it is. And, there's crappy movies and there's crappy books and there's all these things. But we also don't know what this will inspire.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like there might be a game 5 years down the line that we both just love, and they're gonna be like, yeah, I played this Open Roads game, and I thought about this, and I learned this, or whatever. And so it's like, I'm always very hesitant to completely write something off.
Yeah, absolutely. Headlines. We love talking about the latest, greatest gaming and pop culture news here on the show, and we've asked Evan to scour and find a headline that's interesting, a news story to talk about. Evan, what do you got for us and the people today?
So this is very much the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to game finances, and we're going to talk about Ubisoft, and we're going to talk about The Crew. Now, are you familiar with this game?
I have heard of The Crew. I think there was a sequel.
Yes.
I really didn't like what I saw of The Crew. I actually may have downloaded and played a trial or demo or something, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm sure. So for people that don't know, it's a sort of open world racing game, and they kind of present. They've been kind of sort of doing it like it's an MMO, but like you can only ever have 8 people in the world at a time. So it's like, that's not really massive. That's MMO, like minimally multiplayer. Regardless, the game ended support end of March of this year. I mean, it's a 10-year-old game, so that's not super surprising, but, the servers went down, so theoretically you couldn't play it anymore, but other games in the past that have had this kind of online only or always online component, they've kind of, a lot of them have gotten a second life thanks to fans or patches done by the company, where you can play it online, or you can play it, host your own servers, or you can just play it offline and single player. And this, from what I've been told, I haven't played this game, but I've been told it's very much a single player game. The races are more just kind of comparing time, so it's not really nothing about this has to be online. So it sucks that the servers go down. I sort of understand. I mean, I can't imagine the server costs for this particular game were particularly high. Like I said, it's a 10-year-old racing game, but for whatever reason they turned the servers down. Fine, whatever. This is not a new thing. What is new is Ubisoft actually went and revoked the licenses for people that bought it digitally. So it no longer shows up in the store. That cannot be re-downloaded. It cannot be played in any fashion, and basically makes it impossible for things like fan patches to do to take away the online stuff. Basically, they just reached into people's game libraries and ripped this game right out. And this is causing some fuss, I would say, because people don't like having their shit stolen, even if it's something that they don't necessarily play a lot. And as someone that is a big PC gamer, and I've got a huge Steam library, and thankfully Steam has made many efforts and messages about how they're never going to do this. And this is, going back to the start of Steam, they've basically said, if for some reason Steam ever goes down, we're going to release all the games so that if you bought a game, it's yours forever and all that.
This is wild, because as we got into the age of online games and online only games, this was bound to happen, where if there's no offline mode, or they don't even allow, again, like the gamers themselves to build one up, then it's going to be inevitable that these things will be completely unplayable at a certain point in the future. Now, it's hard to say that you were robbed of your money at some point. They usually, and I see here that they would delist the game, so you can't like buy it, right before they're gonna like get rid of it forever. Yep. They're like, look, we're gonna keep you from buying it because you're only gonna be able to have it for a few months. So they kind of take that away. So really, no one was robbed. You got if you wanted to, you got your kicks from the game that you bought, right? You got your game time out of it. But it is problematic. I'm not one who, I used to, collect steelbooks and don't so much anymore. I have no problem going with an all-digital console. I just haven't had the opportunity to do that. Like, I don't really mind. I don't need like some people to have that physical copy and believe that because I have my cartridge, that's way infinitely better because of online gaming and digitizing things being evil in its incarnate. That's not what kind of person I am. It doesn't bother me as much. This gives me the ick a little bit, and just the way that they're doing it. So I'm glad you brought this to my attention. It's just it's forcing me to reckon with a day where eventually these things are just going to go away, and one day it might be something that I really enjoy still. It's not uncommon to play, Mario Brothers, the original, and people love that. It's like you could grow up with a Nintendo game and play it for nostalgia, like your, what do they call that, your warm blanket, and your go-to game. What's going to happen in the future when, your go-to game was something in this era, like The Crew or whatever, and you just want to go back to it? Will there be a type of person who, because that's what they played in the digital age when they were young, their stuff is just going to go one day, and all of their digital things are going to be gone, and they can't go back to their nostalgia things because physical media was dead by that point. It's a scary thought. It's weird.
Well, and the whole idea of this is a question that's happened. It's come up quite a bit in the last few years, where it's just like, do I own this? And this goes beyond video games. It goes to movies. Think of things like all the streaming services. If you can. I think there was a story earlier this year where Sony, they were pulling stuff off of their media service, and where it's like you bought the movie on Sony service, and it's like, no, you don't get it anymore. And so it's like, what? And some of that is an expectation thing, where it's like, I know when I pay my Netflix, I know if I stop paying, I don't have access to that stuff anymore. I get that. But when I'm specifically like, I want to give money to purchase this forever, and it's especially galling when it's like, if you're paying $60-$70 for something, and it's like, oh, at a whim, this can just be, ripped from me, and all that. And there is a whole kind of, when it comes to video games, there's a whole abandonware kind of movement, and about these companies that either don't exist anymore, or no one knows who's got the rights to the games anymore, and so they can't publish it. It's like, so it's just kind of letting stuff out into the world so that they stick around, because there is an archival aspect to this too. I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna miss the crew in the great history of video games, but what if let's say, for example, what if Nintendo goes under at some point, and like, do all of those digital copies no longer exist anymore? So how do we keep the history of gaming alive if the companies can just basically send these games to the cornfield and no one can ever get to them ever again? So
it's on them to keep their digital, like, copy purchasable, downloadable, like, you got those people who keep the what is that game, the Room, downloaded on their PlayStation because you couldn't download it anymore.
Not the Room. Well, the Room might be one of them, but no, it was that Silent Hill one.
Right, I forget the name.
Yeah, I can't think of the name either. But
the
yeah,
stairwell, the door.
Something.
It's something like that.
Who the hell knows?
But yeah, it's a wild world that we're living in, and we're getting into. The convenience of digital's going to win out. I just think that it is. But I'm just reading the comments here, and like the IGN article. Someone is just commenting saying the downside to digital and always online is it should be mandatory. Games should remain playable offline and available for download. If they're going to delist and make it impossible to acquire a game later, it should be made available, maybe even free to download for everyone for a year or something. So yeah, it's a wild world. I hope that game preservation is taken seriously. I hope that these things happen less. I'm not a fan of always online games and games with no offline mode. I find those like kind of weird, but the lines are blurred all the time, with servers and the way that online